All right, folks, welcome to another Liar's Path. This episode, this is episode 3 for the week. It did 2 yesterday, and now I'm doing one today that I'm very excited about. My guest that I have on is associated with quite a number of bands, all of which are kick-ass metal. They vary in sound a little bit from each other, and do some genre blending as far as metal goes. Um, the first band that this gentleman was a part of is a band that I still listen to heavily to this day. And I have to thank my older brother for introducing me to this band, and that is Media Lab. And that's going to be one of the big topics on the list today that I'm going to talk about. But I want to try and condense as much as I can into it and cover as much ground as possible with his other projects as well. And that individual is Sean Aizen Nelson. How are we doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Living the dream.
Happy to hear. Not doing too shabby myself. Like I said, I got a sick kiddo right now, but he's holding on. He's hanging in there.
I know how that is, man.
Yeah, but no, I couldn't be more excited to finally get you on here, man. I've been meaning to reach out to you for over a year now because I've been doing the podcast for about a year and 2.5 months now is how long I've been doing it, and I meant to have you on season 1, and kept getting busy and booked up, and before I knew it, the end of the year was here and I didn't have any more slots open for the year. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to reach out to Sean sometime in 2025. And luckily you had some time available, and here we are. So I guess, man, let's just hit the ground running, and let's talk about how you found yourself wanting to have an outlet making music.
Yeah, so that's actually a big part of my life. When I was really young, I would say before high school, I was very I don't know, like very closed off, very introverted, and I have social anxiety, which I've learned throughout the years, but back then I didn't know what it was, and it was like I was just very like scared to talk to anybody, scared to make friends, and then on top of that, I had my home life, as a lot of kids are, was pretty fucked up. There's some alcoholism in my family, and I had grew up with just constant fighting and whatever. So I had this thing with music in my head, like it's really hard to explain. Back then, I mean, I can explain it now in musical terms, but back then I had no idea what it was. I would actually like play like theme music to, like, anytime I thought about something, like for instance my parents fighting or some fucked up shit, I would play it in my head with this theme music. It's really hard to explain, but it calmed me down. And I started wanting to like project that. And on a side note of that, I would anytime like I was having like a stressful moment, this is when I was like 10, 11, 12, I would put on music and put on my headphones and just crank it, right? And so I got into this thing where, like I said, I was playing all these songs in my head, or playing this music in my head that I didn't know where it was coming from, and I just wanted to try to make it happen. So I got a guitar when I was probably 12 or 13, and I just sat in my room. Like I said, I didn't like being in groups of people when I was young, and so I would just kind of isolate myself, and I would sit in my room and I taught myself how to play guitar. And what's funny about that is I taught myself how to play guitar only good enough to start being able to translate stuff in my brain, and then I stopped. So, and what I did, and keep in mind, this is back in the 90s, so there's no fucking computer DAWs, there's none of the shit.
Yeah.
What I would do when I could finally start projecting some of the stuff onto that guitar, which is usually like single string shit, but I would play this melody and I would record it on a tape deck, right? And then I would play that recorded melody back over my home stereo and then record the second melody on guitar to the one that was playing. So it was like my makeshift, but it was weird because it wasn't like metal or rock. It was more like orchestrations. It sounded like dark opera kind of shit. Not that my skill level was that good, but that's kind of the feeling that was coming out. These instrumental, like melody pieces, very dark and sad, and that's
Right.
kind of how it started. And I spent years doing that. And I would just sit in there and just put these basically like, I guess movie scores together, but they were movie scores to like shit that was going on in my head. That's kind of how it started.
Well, hey, you said something that I did a lot when I was a kid, and I still do. I have music playing in my head all the time, not just bands I listen to, but things I just create in my head. I know exactly what you're talking about because that's something I did when my parents were fighting.
Yeah.
Is either that or I'd zone out building with Legos, or if I had like a stereo or something, I would crank some music or something. It drowns it out. So I totally understand that. Like pretty much like completely. But I've just never channeled it beyond lyrics. I sing, but I don't think I'm that great. But but I don't.
I wasn't either great either. I wasn't great either at the beginning, but that if you want me to go into how it turned into like, yeah. So that I did that for a couple of years, right? And what I think happened was obviously from like I was 12, from 12 to 16, I just did that, and it got to a point where it was just like I knew that this is something I needed to pursue because it's like all I cared about, and it also made me feel a lot better, right? But what ended up happening was the I guess the sadness and the fear. Like when I say fear, I'm like when you're young and your home life sucks, you have a fear of it, you know what I mean? And yeah. And so I guess that over the years, and then so fast forward to like at the end of when I was 17, like maybe 6 months till 18 is when my parents split, and my dad took off, went to Utah, and my mom took off with the dude that she was with, and kind of like at that right there at 17 and a half, I was on my own. And so what I noticed what I did early on personally, it was I would attach myself to, well, first of all, I was very standoffish. I didn't let anybody in. But when I did let someone in, like let's say a female or something, if I did actually let that person in, I super attached to them. And then what that would turn into is obviously when you're young, you go through all kinds of breakups. But anytime I was super attached, and there was a breakup, it was like the end of the world. Like, and I think, and obviously that's because of the, abandonment of family and all that stuff. But that's kind of what took that fear and sadness and turned it into like this anger and longing. And it came to a point where, I was 19 years old. I had eventually drove to Utah where my dad was, when I was 18, because I couldn't make it on my own. And, I was up there, right? And it was like that kind of stuff kept snowballing. There was a girl I started dating when I was 19 that it is irrelevant now. But at that time, that's all I didn't have a family. I didn't have nothing. I got really attached to her. We obviously broke up, and I was very, what's the word? I was very reactive back then. I guess my wife might say I'm reactive now. But what I mean is like everything that happened was the end of the fucking world. And I think it was, again, just because of
trauma response.
Yeah. And I also knew that I had nowhere to turn. I didn't have any family. I didn't have any, nothing, it was all on my own. So anytime I broke one of those attachments when I was younger, I think my brain attributed it to the abandonment shit. So anyway, 19 years old, Utah, that all turns into anger, and I decide I'm driving home to San Diego. And the whole drive home, like as a kid when I had all this music in my head, now it's some of these melodies are turning into vocal lines. But what was odd about it was, like you said that you like write lyrics in your head. That's not what I was doing. What I would do, it was let me caveat this. The last Kill Your Name album in 2019, there's a song called Cry Heart Bleed, which is a joke. It's a joke from one of my producers, Frank Torres. He always said, like, every time we're in there and I'm like stuck on something, he's all, just say cry hard or bleed. That's what you always say. And it's the reason why that's funny is back here driving home to San Diego, like I said, I wouldn't write vocal melodies. I would or vocal like lyrics, what I did is I had these amazing melodies, right? Like, cause all I wanted to do, I wanted the vocal lines to be, I wanted them to be like longing, right? But you can't always fit everything you want to say into those exact melodies. So I said, fuck the lyrics. I'll cut it down to words that hurt and make it not make sense. I don't give a fuck as long as the melody's there. So that's what I started doing. It was like all these like lines that fit the melody line, but they were like broken sentences, which is a lot of people have mentioned. Like some of my lyrics kind of break and like don't really finish. And I'm like, yeah, because it's like I'm just trying to get the point out in that melody that I think is heart wrenching, you know, because like a lot of people focus on lyrics, but you can have the best lyrics in the world, and if they're sang to absolute trash melodies, no one's going to care. You have to like suck. It has to feel something, right? So that's what I was doing on the way home. Like it started turning into these like these words that meant something to me, like, and they're usually trauma words, and usually in my brain they made a lot of sense. But I would make sure that, and so anyway, by the time I got home, back to San Diego. I pull up in San Diego and go, what the fuck am I doing? I don't know anybody. Like, I still don't know anybody. I don't have anywhere to go. So what I did is I took this anger, and we're talking about Media Lab, so I'm gonna skip into Media Lab from this. But what I first did was I just opened a San Diego Reader, and I was like, I'm gonna try to sing for a band, right? And I actually found one. It was Life Hates Me, and Life Hates Me was a very obviously I named that band. Anyway, that band though, if it wasn't for that band, we wouldn't be sitting here talking today. And it wasn't necessarily that band. It was the guitar player in that band, Kevin, who is actually my only one of, I would say I have 3 close friends left in this world, and he's one of them. He was older than me. He kind of took me in. Like, I was like living in my car. I was homeless when I came back from Utah. And I auditioned for this band. I got it. And the way I auditioned is I walked in, and Life Hates Me was very aggressive nu metal. I just walked in and started fucking screaming and like screaming like, and I could not sing back then. I would scream just like these trauma words. And it was very like, it was when you heard, like I don't have them anymore. I used to have these practice recordings of Life Hates Me, and it just sounds like someone's dying, but not in like a cat screeching way. It sounded very like depressing. And that's how I got that job. And I didn't know what I was doing. And, but anyway, I get into Life Hates Me, and Kevin, realizes, you know, that, I was living in my car, and, I didn't, you know, I had a lot of pride. I didn't want anyone to know, but he did. He used to like every night after practice, we practiced 3 nights a week. He'd give me like 20 or 30 bucks and tell me to get something to eat. And he took care of me. He kind of raised me. Anyway, all my skills that I honed, when it comes to songwriting, when it comes to vocal melodies, when it comes to arranging music and doing it, all came from him. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here. Anyway, the fast forward, Life Hates Me went for a couple years. We actually got pretty big in San Diego. I 100% honed my craft to the T. The first night we ever played live, I was terrified. I remember when I went on stage, the only thing I could do was I blanked out everything and just thought about all the things I was singing, because they were so personal and traumatizing. And within like 30 seconds of the first song, a minute of the first song, I just projected myself back to these moments of time I was talking about. And next thing I know, after our first show, like everybody was like, holy shit, dude. Like, that was amazing. You're amazing. I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. And, you know, going back and looking at some of those Life Hates Me videos, I was very emotive, very like, and which actually worked, because that's what nu metal is, super emotional, you know. But I was just fucking wreck on stage, you know. It looked like some dude in a therapy session. It was pretty crazy. But that's what I needed to do. Anyway, we can go back and talk about all that. But Life Hates Me ends up breaking up. There was obviously issues in the band, like everything else. And right as we're breaking up, there's a band in San Diego called Swan, and they were this was Alex and Steve from Media Lab, and these guys were, holy shit. They came on the scene, and it was like this groove pocket that Alex and Steve played in. It's like, imagine like a tech deck tech death version of like Soulfly Roots. That's what it sounded like. It was just fucking just low. Yeah, just like this low, complicated, but just groove, just riff. Got like kind of like Embers was actually a riff that they had in Swan that they never used. So that kind of shit but it was like a lot more tech. Anyway, they came out just crushing it. But there was I don't want to speak to whatever issues they had, but they lost their singer. They lost their bass player, and it ended up being Steve and Alex left, and they'd gotten the guitar player from Sprung Monkey, Will, as their second guitar. And right as that happened is when Life Hates Me breaks up, and they're putting up open auditions. And I did the same thing I did. Obviously, they knew who I was now. I mean, Life Hates Me made a name, but I did the same thing I did in Life Hates Me. I just walked in, picked up the mic. But this time, I walked in and I didn't scream. The first song they played, Alex and Steve had written the chorus of Save Me, and I did exactly what I did driving home. That's what that chorus is. I walked in there, they played it. He did the drum roll right when he kicked in. I just sang Save Me, exactly how it's recorded. And that was it. They were like, hell yeah. And I'm like, hell yeah. And then we just started going. And it was this thing that it was just fire and hunger. Like, I think, we just wrote songs nonstop. I think we were in there every fucking night. And because it was only from that moment, from that night, it was 4 months later, 4 or 5 months later, we got signed. And we'd played like 3 shows in San Diego. Absolutely incredible. I mean, that's one thing about the Media Lab band. Inside San Diego, everybody knows the skill set in that band is like, it's everybody. In fact, I might be the least talented person in that band when it comes to like just my part. Like I'm not the greatest singer in the world. A lot of people don't realize a lot of the stuff that people like from me is just pure emotion. That's why I'm able to do it. But the skill set in that band is the band. Steve is one of the best drummers on the planet. To this day, I'm 46 now. I was 23 when I joined that band. There's not a better rhythm guitar player I've ever even talked to than Alex. She is, I don't know. I don't know. There's not. She has a gift that you don't understand until you sit down and write with her and play with her. She's incredible. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, that band is so talented. For I would say the first 6 months they carried me. I mean, I was who I was and I was good, but it was definitely they carried that record deal, and I'll give them all the credit for that. I mean, it's amazing musicians. Anyway, and we got signed and introduced to Logan Mader as our producer, and that's where Logan was my final piece to my puzzle. Like when I met him, I mean, I have his old logo tattooed on my throat for a reason, because he kind of finished my training like where Kevin left off. And what ended up happening, we had I think we had a month to do the record back in 2004. It was like, let's get it done, get it out, and get on the road. So, we go up to LA. We were there for a month. We tracked all the music, and then the last 10 days, the band went home, and it was just me and Logan. And I was really nervous at first, and after a couple days going through with Logan, like this dude honed all the final pieces of my voice and my delivery, and like brought it to a level I did not know existed. And that's where the vocals on that record came out. And it was like, to this day, like that high piece in Embers, I can't fucking sing that anymore. I've tried, but it's like it wasn't heavily corrected or anything. It was just Logan just brought it out of me, and he taught, he kind of taught me how to breathe. That dude is one of the best producers. He's one of the best musicians on the planet, but producing wise, there's nobody that good. And that's kind of where I learned how to do.
I have a lot of respect for him myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everything he does is fantastic, but, I worked with him hard, and I really I credit him to so much. Anyway, he took management of that band for a minute, and we launched the tour. And our first tour was in 2005. It was in January of 2005 in the Midwest, so it was in the snow within this moment. And they weren't signed yet. They had just got signed to an indie label, and it was a co-headlining. We swapped headlining every night, and it was back when In This Moment was fucking thrash metal. Like that first record, which you can't, it's not even online. I fucking forgot the name of it, Maria. I don't know. Somebody sent it to me. Anyway,
I don't even know the name of it.
no, it's not. Yeah, and everybody thinks it's that first record. It's not. There was one before it. It sounded like the first Killswitch Engage record mixed with the first Bullet for My Valentine record. Fantastic. Anyway, it was
sick.
it is sick, and it was. But at the time, I was scared because it was 2005. We were doing new metal, which was on its. Well, it was out basically, and then what they were doing was on hit. That was starting right there. That meant that first metalcore scene, and I was like, "Fuck, dude! Like, we're gonna get fucking slaughtered," and we didn't. They were amazing, but people fucking fell in love, and it all just kind of, it just started. It came really fast, and obviously, like if I'm being super honest, I think everybody got a little bit egotistical, not in an arrogant way, but with each other internally with the band. There was a lot of arguments. I admittedly was impossible to work with back then. I was young. I had came up really quick. I also had a chip on my shoulder because of where I started from. I started homeless, living in my car. So I had a chip on my shoulder. I can admit that. And, but I also was very scared to fail, because if I fail, I go back to nothing. I have nothing. I have no family, nothing. So I pushed really hard, and at the same time I was doing mountains of cocaine. So it wasn't a good combination, but either way, the band crumbled fast after that. At the end of that first tour, we went in and started recording some of the second record stuff, which ended up getting released on the reprint of Bleeding Memory, because that's a whole other story. We got fucked with the record label. I think they still own the rights. So what I ended up doing in 2019 finally was taking the 5 songs that we had started for the second record and just putting it on a repress of, I don't even think a lot of people know this. There's 2 versions of Bleeding Memory online. There's one with a white cover and one with a black cover. The one with the black cover has the extra songs. Anyway, those are just songs that we started on the second record, and that's when we kind of broke up. And there's a lot of factors in why we broke up. Obviously we shouldn't have. If we wouldn't have, we would have went to the moon, but we did. And we were all young, and we all went off and did our own things. And from that moment on, from that breakup till today, it's the same thing. People are like, dude, why? I still get messages. I'm like, fuck, I don't know, man. So anyway, that's kind of Media Lab. It was fast, and it was a lot at once. And I think that's what did it in. We tried in we didn't try anything. In 2015 or 2016, we did that reunion. Our drummer got it together, and our drummer's always, to this day, is always wanted to put the band back together. He still does. Right now he does. And he will, it started off as a reunion in 2015, and we practiced for a week, and we did 3 shows. This came out like nothing ever changed 10 years later. But, our drummer wanted to put it back together. Now, that time, I think there's other people that also didn't want to do it. I don't want to talk for them, but it ended up basically the same issues. The egos came out again, and we were all fighting. The last show we played up in Ramona, there was a giant fight after the show. Like I was arguing with Alex, somebody else. We were just all arguing, and it just felt like the old shit. Now, I also think a little bit differently. Other people had other commitments, and still, I don't think everybody saw the worth in it. Steve, our drummer's always seen the worth in it, and I credit him for that. But I just don't think we all did. And so that was it. 3 shows, and that was the end. So that's the Media Lab story.
Well, damn, dude, that's a lot of info I didn't expect to get with that. And I understand, being young and then having, the trauma that you went through, then individually the band members having their own, shit that they were dealing with, and then ultimately having it crumble. I mean, yeah. I'll be honest, man, when activity just fizzled out with you guys back then, when you guys were actually active and then you weren't active, I I wondered what the hell happened, because that first record was just so good. And I'm like, these guys have something so special and tremendous that, like you said, you could have went to the moon and back,
Yeah,
you know. And
for sure.
and who knows, man? Maybe this year, next year, you know, maybe a sit down happens and things really get hashed out, and maybe something comes from it, or maybe not, you know.
Well, that's kind of that's the last part right there. And what you're saying is I want to touch on. So I will so that kind of comes. Why this song is. Let me explain what happened with the Let Go thing. So, I think a couple months ago I was talking to Steve, and like I've always said, Steve is like the one that, our drummer, he'll put this thing back together right now and go full. That's all, like, it's his baby, right? He was actually the founder of it, and there was a minute we were talking. Of course, we got in an argument again, but either way, he was like, right. I hadn't talked to him in years, and then sure enough, being on Facebook, we started talking, and within 5 messages, let's get back together. I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm in Oregon, bro. Like, Alex is in LA. I'm all, have you spoke to Alex? He's all, no, dude, she'll do it. No, she won't. Like, it's just all this. Like, I'm like, no. Anyway, but to your point, to what you just said, I am so I'm getting to a point where, like, I don't have a lot of time left where I can sing like that. And I know that because I'm monitoring my own, like, right. I've been, and I don't have much left. Not saying that I couldn't do it, but to record the songs, any kind of songs for Media Lab to make them sound how they were, like, the time's going to run out on that. So we had that conversation, and we got in an argument. I have a fucking son now. I don't have time for that shit. So I just stopped talking. And then I know that he got really pissed. I released those 3 songs that weren't technically Media Lab. And I said that they were me. Aizen was Media Lab. We switched the name to Aizen, and that's when the band members started falling out. But either way, those songs were the last songs with Steve on it, and Steve was a giant part of Media Lab. And technically, a lot of people consider that stuff Media Lab, and I kind of do too. Either way, but then after all that, I had this email back then. So 2004 email just came out, and it was a certain name at hotmail.com. And for the last 15 years, I've been trying to remember the password, because that's what I used to do at practice. I would record stuff I had a Tascam 8-track, and I would record stuff. We would all record stuff, and that's where we would, kind of form our shit from. We would just jam at practice. But the practice studio was a block away from my house. So when we weren't practice, I would go down there and just write, and I would send it to myself. And that's all this email was. And for 15 years, I couldn't log into it. And one day, like 2 months ago, I woke up and I'm like, I remember the password. And sure enough, that was it. And it's fucking just recordings and recordings. And so what I did is, and I did try to contact, I have heavily tried to contact Alex. Alex is the linchpin. If she were to come and do something, everybody would. And that's the linchpin of Media Lab. She would have to be involved for the entire band to want to be involved. So I found all these songs. I found a bunch that she wrote, which I'm obviously not going to touch. But I did try to reach out. Now, I have to reach out to her third party because we have each other blocked, which is weird because I ran into her last year in San Diego and we hung out all night. So I think it's an old thing that we just never unblocked each other, but I have no way to get a hold of her. So I did third party reach out to a couple of close friends of ours that are mutual, and didn't get a response. I tried to send her an Instagram message, didn't get a response. I don't think that's necessarily because she's avoiding me. I just don't think she's getting them. And then the fires in LA happened. So I was like, so what I decided to do was, there are a bunch of stuff that I wrote solely. I mean, that's how Media Lab was. Everybody kind of wrote, and then we would fucking bring our shit to practice, and then the whole band would just tie it together, So I Let Go was something I did on one of those off nights, and I remember doing it. I remember, and it wasn't anything but a couple guitar riffs and vocal melodies. That's all it was, but it was, it was for Media Lab. So I decided to start putting that together, and the whole time is when I'm trying to get a hold of Alex, and the only person that I could have got to do anything with Let Go with me would have been Steve. And first of all, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't ever mixed live drums. And second of all, I don't even know how to do that via internet with the capabilities that we have. So it wasn't the only way to have Steve lay the drums for anything we did now would have to be together.
Remotely?
And
Oh, okay.
well,
Yeah.
we'd have to do it together. And I have a 3-year-old son, so that would the only thing that's going to get us together would be Alex. And then if she came involved, I'd fly down. Either way, so that's what Let Go, and so I'm looking at all these songs, and I'm looking at the ones I wrote, and I'm like, I can't get a hold of anybody really, and I'm like, well, I don't have much time left to sing like this. I don't like. There's going to be a point where I'm not going to want to too. So I just decided to start building it, and I reach out. Now I have like 2 or 3 more that I solely wrote that I don't even think they've heard. But I found them on there, and it's really cool. I also found a bunch of really cool like jam sessions of us, like just fucking amazing pieces, dude. Like fuck, man, they're so good. I would love to get everybody involved, and I'm going to try. But if I can't, then I'm going to, I'm going to go ahead and do the ones that are mine, and get them out there just before I can't anymore. You know what I mean? So that's kind of that.
No, I get it, man. And, my hope is obvious to you. I'm sure that something does get resolved, closure happens and you guys reach a point somehow where you can do a bit more before, like you said, you can't really sing like that anymore. And by the way, if anything current that you've put out with like vocals that you've done within the last couple of years, to me, you sound just as good. Like I don't hear maybe what you might feel in your voice when you're singing. And obviously, I don't feel that. So you know what you're talking about in regard to your voice. And I think I get it. You mean that you just don't want to damage it, right? You don't want to.
Well, yeah, I mean, damage it. Yeah, and because I don't, damage it. But here's the thing: like back then, I didn't know how to sing. I know how to sing now. But if the original take of Let Go, when I did those courses, I sang properly, and it didn't sound right. It didn't sound like Lab because the notes, when you hit a note from pure passion, like just longing, and then you hit a note correctly,
right?
It sounds different. It sounds different. Like matter of fact, like I can sing that whole chorus like perfectly, like of Let Go. I can sing it perfectly, in a correct way, and it sounds great. If I sing it incorrectly how I used to, which took me a minute to remember how I did that, it's actually a little pitchy, which I had to correct. But the longing is there. You know what I mean? That desperation is there, and it just sounds better. So, I don't know. Like, I know that there's going to be a point where it won't. I either won't have the ability to do that anymore, or it won't be appealing anymore. And I think that, like, everybody knows that Media Lab, anyone that's into Media Lab, it's a really big part of them, and especially with the band members. And I know my life and mindset back in that time was like a very significant part of my life, and finding these songs like brought back a lot. And I'm like, and it put me back there, and it put me back in that mindset. And reading some of these lyrics, I'm like, holy shit. So I want to do them, and I would love to do them with everybody. And I would love. I mean, I would love to. The thing is if they're not going to, I'm going to do at least mine. I will not. I will not touch. I mean, there's the best stuff is the stuff that we wrote together. That's like, I'm not going to touch that. I don't think that's fair. But there's some fucking good shit. I know there's a fan favorite called "I Dream in Red" that never got recorded, and I can't remember it anymore. There was one recording of it as a practice recording or something that a couple people had, and there was a like 2-week period where everybody on the internet was looking for it for us. But it's probably one of the best songs we wrote. I think Alex probably remembers how to play it, but I don't. That's one I know that a lot of people want. There's a couple other ones that I had a buddy send me another Media Lab song that I think Alex wrote that I could redo, but I won't because it's not mine. So there are some things out there that we could do, and I would be open to taking the stage again. We've talked about it a couple times, but it would have to be everybody. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be everybody, and it would have to be sooner than later, because Alex is the youngest in the band, but besides that, like I'm like normal. Everyone's a lot older than me. So I mean, I don't know how much time there is. So if they want to do it, I'm in. You know, like if not, I'm just gonna finish up the ones I did and do what I do. But yeah, I mean, I started releasing songs again. A couple of years ago, just under me. There's a couple other projects. Kill Your Name was after Media Lab, obviously.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, and I love Kill Your Name. I think all the stuff you've done is quality. All the people that have been involved. I don't think there's anything you've ever done that I didn't like. Everything is. And for me, what always attracted me to Media Lab and the other things that you did has always been the way you pull that emotion into your vocals. Like you're all in. You don't phone in anything.
No,
everything sounds legitimate. Yeah. So I'm happy with what you're doing with Media Lab, man. I love that the Let Go came out. I love that the plan for some more stuff that's yours that you want to put out that you feel good with. That's not other members that should be there with you to do it. I'm going to be happy to get that. And if that stuff happens where everybody comes all in, and you're able to do something at least as maybe like not a farewell, but a thing for the fans where you could play a couple more shows together. I know that I would be able to go to that because you're in Oregon. And if it's in Oregon,
it wouldn't be in Oregon. It wouldn't be in Oregon. No, it would. If we only did one, it would be in San Diego. If we only did two, it'd be in San Diego. If we did a couple, like it was. I mean, maybe, but if we did one show, it would be in San Diego, 100%. And I would want it there too. I mean,
makes sense.
That's where our legacy's at. I mean, we have a lot of fans everywhere. But that would feel more comfortable, and most of them are down there. All of them are down there. Alex is in Hollywood, but that's 86 miles away. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm down. I think, like I said, the linchpin is Alex, and she's doing her own thing. She hasn't done metal since Media Lab. She is into, a bunch of other different genres of music, and the stuff she does is really good. It's not heavy, it's not rock, but she's into her own thing, and like I said, she's a linchpin, so it would have to be her. She would have to bring it together.
I meant to say this comment. I think you see it on screen, but Matt Meir came in and said, "What up, Sean?"
That's the bass player for. It used to be Fireglass. I think he's the bass player for something Chaos. I don't know if he's still in here. You can say it. Yeah, he's Fireglass was a big part of our back in the day. They were more Kill Your Name, but they were just another amazing Arizona band that Kill Your Name toured with a lot. So yeah, what up, Matt?
Yeah, I'll have to check into them because I don't think I've ever heard anything from them, if I'm honest.
They got two singers. Yeah, they're not together anymore. They had two singers, like kind of a Linkin Park. Like if Linkin Park was really heavy, that's what Fireglass was. They had a singer and then they had a rapper that was fucking fire. They're just heavy new metal, dude. They're badass. Yeah.
I love new metal, man. That's always been my favorite genre. Just because of the emotion that's poured into it, man. Like it was crapped on a lot back in the day for no good reason, and I'm glad it's kind of having a resurgence. There's a lot of bands that are coming back from that period. Simon Says is back. They're kicking around playing shows. They're one of my absolute favorites. And,
I love Simon Says. Yeah.
Yeah. The great group of guys. So you've covered a lot of what I had written down already, just on your own volition here. So that's a good thing.
I talk a lot.
No, that's good, man. I love all that outpouring of info, man. That's precisely what I hope for. And so besides Media Lab, besides Vilyn, you sent me that song that's going to be coming out, which I thought was fucking killer. I love that chorus. Like I told you, it's huge. It's
Vilyn.
Go ahead.
Vilyn. Well, look, so Vilyn ties. All right. So Kill Your Name and Vilyn tie into each other. So real quick on Kill Your Name. Kill Your Name was. All right. So remember how I told you when Media Lab got signed in 2004 and we go on tour with In This Moment, right? That's when metalcore started. I mean, metalcore started with the first Avenge record in 2000, right? When that record came out, no one knew if it was a joke Like I remember people going, "Is this supposed to be a parody?" Because it was like Iron Maiden riffs over fucking, you know what I mean? Like, but it was so good, it kind of kicked off metalcore, and then Kill Switch. Anyway, so Media Lab goes out with In This Moment, and their metalcore at the time, which people are like, "What? Yeah, dude, they were sick." Anyway, and they still are sick, by the way. Anyway,
Yes.
so through that whole time, I'm one of my demons, and one of the I will admit, one of the small factors that I contributed to the breakup of Media Lab was the fact that I was so obsessed with being current. I was hyper obsessed with being current, and on top of that, I am a traditional metal person. I've always I grew up on it. I loved it, and so when that came out, like if you listen to the 5 songs that came out on that reprint, they're definitely more metalcore-ish, and that was my push. That was me pushing. And so when Media Lab broke up, Kill Your Name, I still had been writing just like I always do, and it was so funny. I didn't know. I was like listening. I was really in the metalcore because I was traditional. And a couple of years went by where I just sat in my room and I was just kind of planning the next step. I knew I had pieces in place. Like I know Logan would take me at any point. Me and him had a great relationship at the time, and he believed in me. So I was just kind of planning what I was going to do, and I was writing all these songs. I'm an okay guitar player. I'm not a metalcore guitar player. I can't do that shit. And so I was like, fuck. How am I gonna phrase this music? I had all this music in my head, but again, I was like obsessed with being current. And then, so I'm sitting in my room one day and I'm writing December Bloom, and I had December Bloom was originally written as a new metal song. It was just that verse. It was played differently, but it was the same chord progression. And I'm sitting there and I go to YouTube and I type in like new metal bands, and this was 2000 and the end of 2010. And I'm just listening to this playlist, and I'm trying to lock in like a genre, because obviously it was metal, but I didn't know how to phrase some of these riffs. And I'm like, and Asking Alexandria, A Prophecy came on, and I was like, holy shit, I never heard it. Well, it just came out, but to this day, that is my favorite song of all time. That was my favorite band until they turned into pop punk. I don't know what the fuck they are, but the first 2 Asking Alexandria records, Stand Up and Scream and Reckless and Relentless, are the 2 of the absolute best records ever recorded to the history of time. I was there, caveat real quick, I was there when Danny came back, and it was the last time they played A Prophecy. And then oddly enough, went to San Diego last year, and me and Kevin from Life Hates Me and my wife went and saw them at the House of Blues, and they played that shit for the last time again, and it was amazing. Anyway, A Prophecy comes on, and I was like, now that is more that is a way to phrase metalcore that I understand, because I don't know, I still think those first 2 records, they have that dark feel of metal, of like new metal, but it's definitely like that syncopated mainstream genty fucking metalcore, right? And that was it. I was like, holy shit, dude. That's it. And not that I copied that, but that kind of steered me in the direction of Kill Your Name. And so I took all these songs and started writing in that genre. And at the beginning, that all that stuff was written with my other producer at the time, Frank Torres, who's fucking amazing. Now that guy is one of the best singers and songwriters on earth. He puts me to shame. But he's one of my best friends, and he lived a block away. And so I called him like, hey man, I got these songs like kind of written. I kind of know what I want to do. Do you want to help me? So we sat there and built up December Bloom, it's actually still one of my biggest songs. I think bigger than all the Media Lab stuff. Like when it comes to numbers, I went over to his house. We sat there all day, and he helped me just build this track. And it was December Bloom was the song that kind of gave Kill Your Name the identity. Now, I did that one and 3 other songs with Frankie. We just stood there. I think for a week we just wrote them. It was me and him, and he wrote 50% of that shit. Like he went in, and we had these 3 songs. We had December Bloom, Another Part of This Evil You, and I don't remember the other one. I don't think the other one made the record. Either way, I sent him to Logan, and I said, hey, this is like what I'm working on now. And Logan signed me without a band. He's like, fuck yeah, I want this shit. So what we did is me, him, and Frankie via the internet made those songs. Logan produced them to the way he wanted them, having Frankie kind of do the technical work by him telling him, hey, I want this change. Anyway, then he went to like MI Music Institute, got our drummer, Ralph Alexander, who's the drummer for Poppy now, right? But he was 21 at the time. He pulled him right out of MI. And then he pulled out Michael and Jordan. I don't know how he found them from other death metal band. Because Michael was a death metal guitar player. Like, he didn't even understand. Yeah, he doesn't know what melody is. Like, not in a bad way. Like, his right hand is retarded. There's a song online, if you look it up. It's only live. It's called Anthem for the Forgotten. It's straight up like Whitechapel shit. We played it live. But that was at the beginning. Michael, he doesn't understand. Like, not. He does. He's a great guitar player, but he's from like that deathcore scene. So it's just like this crazy right hand. Anyway, so that's when we put Kill Your Name together. He signed it. We did that first record, and same as Media Labs launch. And I was 31 at the time, and and we were right. This time we were right in the middle, right at the beginning, because we were doing the Kill Your Name was kind of that genty metalcore with all the electronics and techno shit. That's kind of what we were, and we launched a year after that started, so we were right on it, dude. Got some dope tours, all those bands, Attack, Asking Alexandria, Icy Stars, we were all involved with all that shit, and that ended the saddest way possible, and I think it was karma for me. We knocked that out for a year with the most all-star lineup I've ever had in my life, and like just all-star meaning literally known for their craft, right? And then we were ready. Logan got us a showcase for 3 of the biggest metal labels on earth, and there's no way on earth we are not going to get it. We were signed already, but it was for a giant deal. Set it up at the Roxy. The day before the show, I got strep throat. So I called them, and I'm like, and I couldn't talk. And Logan's like, bro, you got to figure it out. I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. So I got that like vocal ease fucking shit. I had 2 fucking bottles of Chloroseptic and went on stage and bombed my ass off. I couldn't sing a note. I couldn't scream. And within a minute of the first song, I felt my stomach. I don't know. Like, I almost want to get teary thinking about it. I destroyed that show. And, unfortunately, those guys, that was the end. Those guys just didn't want to. I don't know. I made them look bad. I don't know what I still think back. Like I didn't want to play the show, but they did, and I don't know. It's still my fault. I don't know. Anyway, that's what happened. So that broke everything. Those guys kind of took off, and obviously Ralph's in Poppy now. So that guy is the best drummer on the planet. Period. Like, he's like, anyway. But so and then a couple years went by, and I gave it one more run. I called Logan and I said, if I put this back together with new members, will you take it again? He said yes. Logan's always believed in me, and I did. And I put together one last lineup. We did the Ashley record, and it just didn't. We did good, and those guys are great, and it just didn't feel the same. And then, I'm coming into I was like 37, 38, and maybe 36, 37. And I just, I started missing, or not missing. I wanted a family. I still had no friends. I'm 20 years living on the road, fucking doing cocaine, fucking just going with the foot on the gas for 20 something years, And I was like, what's up? And I was like, I don't know. I want what I never had. And at the time, I met somebody that I thought was going to be that person. And so I just shut it all down and walked away and moved to Oregon. And that was when I was 39, I think. 39, 40. I literally, one day I called the band, and there's some stuff that happened in between. I got engaged. I got married, but I was still doing the band at the time. And then she wanted to move to Oregon, and I just called the band and said, that's it. And I left. And came here, and I didn't touch music for a couple years. I had a kid. and my ex-wife didn't like the music stuff anymore. Anyway, long story short, I met my current wife, who's the love of my life, and I will be with her for the rest of my life. She is the reason I started doing music again. She's the only reason. She every day she would push, not in a bad way, but she's like, dude, like I don't know why you don't do that anymore. And for me, it was like when I think about that stuff, when I used to think about that stuff a couple of years ago, I'm like, I don't want to stir that monster again. You know what I mean? And but it was in me, and the song started coming in my head again, and the same thing when I was 16. I started playing music to everything. I'm like, holy shit, here we go. But this time I was fortunate enough that I'd sat with Logan for years, and Frankie. I'd learned how to use Pro Tools. I'd learned how to do stuff. I needed to learn some of the technical stuff. I just taught myself just like the instruments. And sure enough, dude, as soon as like I got set up and plugged in my guitar for the first time, it just didn't stop again. That's just 3 years ago, and I'm in my studio every day now. But this time it's more controlled, and I'm dealing with just me and doing exactly what I want to do. And there's no drive to like be current, or no drive to I have to, it's just my music, my soul. And that's where Vilyn came in. Vilyn is the last part of it. I was doing my own music, which I have, but that's my main focus is the Sean Aizen Nelson on Spotify. Like,
Yeah.
All that is, if you notice, that's all kinds of different genres, because it's whatever. I'm not trying to shape that to anything. It's just whatever comes in my head, however it's written is recorded, period. I don't give a fuck if it's pop. I don't care. But then Vilyn, Vilyn only exists because of the guitar player. So Vilyn, I'm sitting there in some producer groups, right? And Kill Your Name, that style of music, metalcore will always be. I just love traditional metal. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, I made a post one day. I'm like, dude, if there's any like metal guitar players, I mean like people that can burn, dude, hit me up. And this guy Matt hits me up, and dude. So basically, Vilyn is me like reliving that without any stress. Vilyn's kind of like Kill Your Name with a way more talented guitar player, and without the restrictions of saying we have to have a breakdown here, we have to have fucking syncopated shit. It can't sound like 80s metal. This Vilyn's like, I don't give a fuck if it sounds like 80s metal. Let's burn it. Let's go. And like it's just like traditional metalcore with a guitar player that drives the entire project. Like, because he left for a year, we had a falling out. We're cool now, but. And I tried to do some Vilyn songs, and it's all guitar driven. It's rad. So that project falls on his shoulders, and he's fantastic. So it's just fun, and I think it's fun for him too. And I've never met him in person. We just do it online. He sends me tracks, and I build it. And that's what it is.
I mean, I get that from as far as like not being in the same place in person. There's a lot of people I've met on Facebook and groups and stuff that I consider close friends just because the relationship we formed online.
Yeah.
Some of the best people that I still talk to are people I've never met face to face.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say earlier when you mentioned that you're not worried about being current anymore, you're not worried about this, that, or the next thing. That has to be like such a weight off your shoulder and your chest to not have that worry constant anymore.
Yeah, dude. And it's not and it's like, for the reason I was like that is because I just wanted to succeed, and I'll tell you this. Back then, you had to be current. You said, you brought up like people were shitting on new metal, and especially when metalcore back then. The reason people were shitting on new metal, and I was one of, even though I was in it, I was one of them to some of the bands, because I was like, new metal is giving people the opportunity to suck at their instrument and just go gong, you know what I mean? Now, that's not all it was. There was obviously, but there was a handful of bands that got away with that because of that. And I think that's where the shitting on came in. And that's also the reason why metalcore started, because then people are like, fuck, dude, I want to hear some guitar work. I want to hear a guitar player again. And so I think there was that line in new metal. There was new metal that was fucking fantastic. Spine Shank, Machine Head. Well, Machine Head was like half and half.
Spine Shank.
But that was my favorite band. But then there was like bands that I don't even know the name, but they were just coming out. That was just playing the drop open string and a halftime drum beat, and the dude was just rapping or screaming, and I'm like, like, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of like open a door for people not to actually have a talent or a gift or a drive, that just want to be rock stars. and that's, I think, what pissed people off. But new metal is one of the best genres of music on earth because it is the most emotional. It just, there, you have to, most of the best new metal is done by really skilled musicians, dude. You know what I mean? And like Snot, dude. Fuck, dude. You know, those guys are, oh my God, they're so talented. But, you know, and like, you know, remember Seven Dust? Holy shit, dude. Fuck, dude. So, yeah, I think that's what it was. And I am now back into it a lot for the emotion side of it, because that was one of the things that new metal brought. They brought that emotion to metal that never existed before. And if it wasn't for new metal, a lot of these metalcore core choruses that you hear that are like staples now, that will never change. That format will never change. There's never going to be another metal song, unless it's deathcore, that doesn't have that catchy hook anymore, because that's what new metal did.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? And I think that's fantastic. And so I'm definitely back into it now. But now I mix it up, dude. You know, like I've been experimenting. I didn't have a scream for about a year. When I first started doing this again, I tried to scream and I couldn't. So I had to work back into that. And now I'm able to do like different screams. But also the difference is I can do 2 words and hit stop and then do the next 2 words. I can't do that shit for fucking paragraphs on paragraphs anymore, which is also another nice thing about getting older and not having to do it live currently. Could I do it live? Sure, but it would take practice. Currently, I can do everything I'm doing comfortably, focused on getting the right you know what I mean? So that's kind of what's going on.
Well, I'm here for all of it, man. I'm thrilled.
Cool.
You know, I've always really respected you as a musician, man. Like everything you did and have done and all the people involved, I've always been really proud of, you know, because
Cool.
even if Media Lab isn't like active in a live sense or in a full band sense, I definitely think that they're a name among the people that know it, that you've said it, is held really close to people's hearts. And I wanted to ask you, you know, I'm going to start wrapping up. In all the years that you've been making music, you know, the various bands, and you've touched on this a bit, I just want to go a little bit deeper. In all the years of making music, you know, playing live and everything like that, the experiences that you have experienced, what do you think it's taught you as a person that you like apply to your life? You know, like lessons and, you know, things like that you could share.
That came from the experience in music.
Yeah, making music, touring, playing live, like that taught you about yourself, like, you know, as a person.
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that it's so on like a more deep sense of, like, you know how I was talking about being current and on all this stuff. Well, a lot of that comes from the fact that I always felt behind, and not in music, in my life, because I was so scared that without the band, without one of these bands I was in, I was nothing, because I had no family. And so the whole being current thing was like, I don't want to be left behind. I don't want to be forgotten. And so this whole time I'm pushing not to be forgotten, because I'm so scared of who I am without music. Like, because that's all I was. That's all I was. I mean, that's all I was. That's all I talked about. That's the only time anyone ever knew me, was in a band setting. Very few people knew me personally. There wasn't much to me personally. That was my identity. And the one thing that all of that taught me is when I had to let it go, when I shut it down, I had to, like, I'm sitting there, I'm like 40 years old going, who the fuck am I? I don't even know how to talk to people, because anytime I would talk to somebody, it was just music. That was the only conversation I ever had. Like when I met women, when I was like with friends, that was the only conversation that was ever talked about. And it taught me to realize that this fear of not having, you know, all this as an identity, is exactly that. It's a fear that I have to get over. And so what I had to do was I had to dig deep and find who I was as a person, and not talk about music anymore. And matter of fact, I think when I met my wife, my current wife, was the first time that I did not present myself as Sean from, you know what I mean? Like, or not that I said that, but that wasn't what I talked about. You know what I mean? And I had to be myself, and it was the most liberating thing on earth. I mean, I credit her for everything I am now, because like she didn't care about that stuff, one, and she still doesn't. And she allowed me to be someone other than this, and all that stuff, doing all that stuff, taught me, like if I knew now, it's so dumb, it's cliche, but if I knew now what back then, what I knew now, like I probably would have succeeded more, maybe in Media Lab or in Kill Your Name, without this push to be current and this fear of not being like that, being the only person I am. And there's a lot of people, anybody like that knows me, that watches this, like I can think of a couple people right off the top of my head, or sitting there shaking their head, yeah, because that's all I was. And matter of fact, it annoyed a lot of people. I know for a fact, like there was a lot of hatred towards me back there, at least within the local scenes, because I was just like all I cared about was being a rock star. But what people don't know is not because like I wanted to be a rock star, it's because it's all I had. Like I was so afraid of not, like, without Media Lab or without Clear Name or without that record deal or without being on tour, I literally had nothing. Like on Christmas, I would sit by myself and watch fucking Rocky movies, because that's what I remember my dad did, but I didn't have friends and family. So I was afraid of that. And now I'm not. And, I would say that music not so much taught me, all those experiences didn't teach me anything like that, but the years of chasing and pushing and having that fear, when it all went away, showed me, like, if I didn't have that 20 years of buildup, right, of making sure it's stuck around, it wouldn't be such a big shock to be where I'm at now and forcing myself to not have it. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but that, like, lesson wise, that's what it more was. It, like, lesson and lesson. It was more of that me able to take 20 years of my life and keep the single identity and try so hard to do that because of this fear. When it finally was gone, it actually made me become who I am today, which I love now. And now when I do music, without having that fear, without having that thing, I'm able to do what I did when I was 16 and just take what was in my head and put it out without that's not my identity. So I don't give a fuck what you think. Like before, it was like, I need to make you happy. I want to make sure everyone loves me. I want to make, you know what I mean? Now it's just music. And I think it's better now. Like, I think what I'm writing is actually better. The only thing that was better from like the Media Lab days and all that stuff, it was like the pure fucking longing. And like when I said, I would skip writing words and just pick the trauma words that fit in the melody. I actually think that was rad. A lot of people do. But that, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I hope that
it makes sense. Yeah, no, I get it, man. And I just want to say that, I gotta commend you, man. Yeah, I know I don't know you on a real personal level, or it's not like we've been friends for 10 years or anything like that. But just from what you've explained to me about your life and the way your mind works and things you've been through, from my standpoint, I hear a lot of personal growth that you're really proud of, and I think that's awesome. You overcame addictions, you overcame a lot of just different things in your life, and looking at you now, you're a father, you're a husband, and you seem happy, you seem content with who you are, what you have, and you really value it, and that's something that I think is super important in life. That's how I feel with my family, and my friends, and things like that. You don't have so much time on this earth, and you spend some time where you're kind of pissing that away, when you're young, in a sense, and then it's usually in hindsight when you're older and you're reflecting on things, you realize what you did lose, and so then you just hold on to it that much harder when you have it, now.
100%.
Huh?
That's what life is, though, right? Everything's a lesson for, like, no, maybe not a lesson, but everything you go through is for a reason. Like, imagine if you think about it, having, being abandoned at a young age. If I didn't have music to shield my identity, what would happen? Like, matter of fact, so you can look at it as a negative, which I do. at the same time, without it, what would have happened to me? Like I probably would end up sitting in my car because had such social anxiety. I'd probably cry myself to death till I was 25, and who knows what I would have done. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying is maybe that crutch, though it broke a lot of things. I'm sitting here trying to be current. I don't want to let go of it. At the same time, it also saved me from a lot of things because I was able to fixate on this identity and keep my mind occupied. So like, I look at everything like, yeah, dude, like I learned a lot from this and I don't want to do that. And I'm glad I'm not anymore. At the same time, thank God for it because it was able to hone some of this energy. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense, man. And before I let you go, I just want to say that this has been a really nice conversation, and it just a lot of like really great stuff that you're willing to divulge to me. I never know what to expect when I bring people on here, but then at the same time, I don't necessarily have an expectation. You know what I mean? I just want to be a nice, easy flowing conversation. I don't like having it be kind of like those stale robotic interviews that you see from like these big, feeds like, big magazines where it's like the same gamut of questions. I like to approach this like I'm talking to a family member or a friend. It's just like hanging out and chatting about stuff, So I just want to let you know, man, you've been really great. I've loved this conversation. You've covered so much of what I was wanting to talk about and a lot more than what I have written down. So it's just so much good shit in this conversation that I'm going to be going back through and just clipping up and posting up that, and I hope I've been, great for you as well, man.
No, you have. I feel like I just talked the whole time and didn't let you talk, but
that's all right, dude.
Like that's one of the downfall. I joke about it with my wife all the time. She'll tell you that I never shut up. But I think one of the things is like, the last thing I'll say is like, I know that I talk a lot, and it's because I don't talk to people a lot. You know what I mean? Because I got up here to Oregon, and the close friends that you have kind of dissipate, and it's like I spent a couple of years out here just silent because I didn't know anybody. So now, even when I talk to my wife, I can tell sometimes she's like, "Shut the fuck up," you know what I mean? Like, so, you're not talking much. So
I relate. I get that from my wife from time to time as well because she jokes all the time. All I ever want to talk about is music. So you and I have that in common. Music is just a big chunk of my life, and it's because it's a trauma thing. It helps me get right in my head, So I get that. But dude, thank you for coming on. I hope that you'd be willing to come on again in the future if you have any other things music-wise you'd like to share with me and my viewers. Love to bring you back on. And when I hit the end live stream here, I want to have you hang back for maybe another couple of minutes just to ask you a couple of things off there. Not really relevant to the conversation, but in a sense is just from on my side of it. But thanks for coming on. I hope everybody that's watched has enjoyed the stream that, didn't know some of the things that Sean covered about all the music he's been a part of. So, yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you on the next one.
Later.